It's a pain to drive around.
Call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Board, we've been given an awesome responsibility to represent the people of this city. It's a responsibility we don't take lightly. I ask for you to please guide our actions, our deliberations, and help us make the best decisions possible for our city. Pray your blessings upon each household that's represented in this room tonight, Lord, and we'll give you thanks. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let the record reflect all council members are here. The mayor is away this evening, so I will be presiding as mayor. Need approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Little,
Second.
second by Mr. Burgess. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Bradley? Mr. Wilson? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move down to public presentation, but before public safety awards, Matthew, I'd like for you to join me out front. Most of you probably know Matthew is embarking on a career change, and he's going to be leaving the city of Monroe and the employment of the city. He'll still be here in the city. And we just wanted to give him this plaque to commemorate 15 years in the city. Different capacities. He's been the city administrator for the past 3 years. And basically it says, in appreciation of Matthew Chancellor for his loyal and dedicated service to the city of Monroe from December 2000 to March 2016. Appreciate it and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much. Step right here to say a few words. A few words, I guess. But it's been an honor to serve at the pleasure of the mayor and council, and it's amazing how time flies. 15 years. I understand that now with 2 young kids, but time's going even quicker now. But you know, this city has a lot to look forward to. It's been a great honor to serve. See these public safety people out here tonight. I mean, you know, that's why I serve too. And you know, to be able to lead with a staff like you've got now. You know, the staff's the glue. I've learned from each and every one of them sitting over there, and it's just been an honor to serve the city. And I'm excited to venture into the private sector. So you know, I won't be a lost phase. I promise you that. So, thanks.
The next item on the agenda is public presentation, employee recognition for 2015 Public Safety Award recipients.
Mr. Vice Mayor, thank you for this time, and Council and Mr. Chancellor. And just to carry on a little bit on your comments, Mr. Aycock. Personally, I want to look you straight in the eyes and tell you I appreciate your time, your mentorship, your friendship, and your guidance. You and I had some pretty special moments over these times, and I'm glad to call you friend. Tonight, I tell you, I'm real honored to have some of Monroe's finest public safety employees here with us. Not all the council people got to join us this year. We had 2 different awards presentations. One was for fire and one was for police. What I'm going to do now is turn it over to Interim Assistant Fire Chief Bill Owens. He's going to go through the fire and tell you a little about the folks that we be recognized. And then we'll get Assistant Chief Watts up here and go through the polling, so.
Thank you. As representing the fire, I want to start with our firefighters of the year per shift. And we'll start with Jimmy White. He's the very first guy here. The firefighter of the year is generally awarded to the firefighters on the shifts that have just performed in excellence on that shift. They stood out above their peers. They've excelled either through evals and their delivery of service to the public. It's a pretty unique honor, and it's something that's actually voted on by their peers to select who on that shift was the best one. This year, Jimmy White was representing C shift. He was our first one.
Jimmy, stand up.
The second one for B shift would be, for B shift would be Chris Sneed. Chris Sneed. And then John Hall is with A shift. And John Hall was also the firefighter of the year for the entire department. And so that honor was also bestowed upon him. But of the three, the officers sit down and select one of the three that stood out more than the rest delivering the service to the public. The fourth member that we have with us tonight will be David Novak. Would you please stand up, sir? David Novak actually received a life safety award this year, and that award was bestowed upon him. He was actually off duty, out doing his own thing, and he was not in the city of Monroe, he was out in Oklahoma County, but he came upon an accident where a lady was having cardiac arrest, and through his actions, not only did he save her life, he actually rode in with the ambulance, left his car on the side of the road, and quite some time before he come back and resumed his life again. But less than 2 weeks later, that lady was able to walk out of the hospital on her own power. So not only did he save her life, he really changed that whole family. Saved a mother, a spouse, and a whole 9 yards. So that was a very big thing. So thank you very much, Mr. Novak.
Thank you. And thank y'all. And the only thing I've really been able to teach the fire folks is how to wear sunglasses on your head. I'm going to teach these guys. So, Sister Chief Watts.
Thank you, Director. As you see behind me here tonight, we have our awardees from our banquet this past year. And just from my standpoint, being with the city for the past 14 years, seeing where we came from 14 years ago to where we are today, it's a pretty proud moment for me. These are some very good, very qualified officers that we have in here tonight. So what I want to start out with first recognizing is for our most DUIs was going to be Officer Nina Lee. Officer Nina Lee, would you please stand? I actually joke with this officer a lot because in a lot of ways she has more courage and gumption than most of my male officers. And she's a go-getter. It kind of scared me at times because she's not one to hold back. She's practically working the streets every night. And she actually had over 40 DUIs, I believe, was it not? 40 DUIs, and you've been with us now how long? 2 years. 2 years. And that's what we're looking for. And I tell people all the time, to be a productive officer, you got to have that drive in you. And she actually just recently, we had a canine that was donated to the PD, and she actually took over the canine, and we're in the process now of getting that canine trained up, and she'll eventually be one of our pen officers within the department. And she's earned that right to do that just with her proaction. So with that being said, I just want to congratulate you again. Thank you for the job you do for us. All right, the next one is, it's not really a mystery to me. This guy's a former Marine. Of course, you guys know I'm a former Marine as well. He took I understand, former command sergeant major Patrick Gordon, he don't like hearing how good Marines can shoot. However, a Marine has taken Top Gun for several years now within the organization. So, with no further ado, I want Officer Ford, would you please stand up? Have you been a law enforcement officer how many years now?
Almost
11 years. And this right here is another example of to where Monroe PD is going. Officer Forrest was a 10-year employee with Gwinnett County Police Department and decided to make a career move not because there's anything wrong or anything going bad from where he was at, but he was just attracted to what we had to offer over here and the atmosphere we had to have to offer. You know, we take a lot of pride within our organization that we have more of a family atmosphere. These guys I know back here on a personal level, and I think that builds a greater bond and makes a better department within the city for us. So, Officer Forrest, I appreciate what you do for us. Thank you for coming on with us. Yes, sir. The next one I want to recognize is Captain Mike Matthews. He's an administrative employee of the year. Now, he couldn't be with us here tonight. He's actually in school and training. But everybody here, I think, knows who Captain Mike Matthews is. He's been with us now for 20 plus years. And he's done such a great job. And this is why we recognize him as being in the administrative position. He's actually the one who handles all our officer complaints. However, if you came to the banquet the other night, you'll see that our complaints have been reduced over 60% for the body-worn cameras that Director Glass has implemented over the last few years. Our next one we want to recognize tonight is Detective Erin Richardson. Detective Richardson, will you please stand? I don't know if you guys have ever met her. She is actually a CID Employee of the Year. She was voted on by her peers as being a CID Employee of the Year. She's worked narcotics force now for some time and has made some really good drug cases. She too is also a former Gwinnett County officer. You know how many years in Gwinnett? 6.5. 6.5. Now, again, going back to Forrest and her as well, it says a lot that you got these officers that are coming from other agencies that had that much tenure there, decided to move to come to the city of Monroe. So I think that lets us know how well we're doing in the organization. Thank you again for what you do for us. All right, the next guy I'm going to call upon, everybody's known within the fire and law enforcement community. He has been a great asset to this department, to this city, and to this county. If you were at our banquet, you would know that on this particular night, this officer responded to a 4-year-old girl that was in having respiratory problems, couldn't breathe. And when the officer got there, because of his background as an EMT, as a paramedic, or firefighter, he started CPR. That they later transported this little girl, and she did survive. So, recognizing him for his actions that night, he was awarded the life-saving award through the police department. So, Sergeant Clay McCullough, please stand. I'd like to give Sergeant Clay McCullough a round of applause, if you would please, just for that. That's exactly what law enforcement represents, is to serve and protect. And he was able to save a life that night, and that's a very commendable act. And his knowledge and experience and actions he took, I believe that's the reason that little girl is with us today. Thank you again, Sergeant. Now, the last guy I'm going to talk about, to be honest with you, when he first came in and applied with us, I'll be completely honest, there was part of me that says, I don't know if this is what we're looking for or not, but since he's been hired on, he has completely impressed me on an everyday basis. I mean, the way he carries himself, the way he presents himself, just a superb guy. This is the quality kind of guy that you want working for the city of Monroe, and I'm proud to have him here. And this right here, what I'm about to say, tells you just how good of an officer he is. Not only did this officer get the Uniform Patrol Employee of the Year, which is voted on by his peers, they picked him, but he also got MPD Employee of the Year as well within the organization. So he won both of those awards. It's prestigious enough to win one, but to win both of them says a lot about who you are and what you represent. So Sergeant Brent Davis, you please stand. I thank you for everything you've done for this department. Appreciate it. And if you don't mind, all you guys stand for me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Keep up the good work that you're doing. Can I give them a round of applause, please?
Just in closing, I want to thank our mayor in his absence and all of y'all on the council and Mr. Chancellor for the support you've given public safety. When you hear who we compete with in recruiting and entertain folks. The actions that this body takes in looking after their employees is why we're able to do that. So I want to tell you, thank you for that, and thank you for allowing us this time to recognize your public service, and not just the council, but our community. These guys see stuff that you don't want to see, and they do things that most folks don't want to do. Anything that we see that's ugly is always with us. So thank y'all for this time to do this, and thank y'all. I love you and do a great job. Thank you. Very great.
No one signed up for public comments, so we move into public hearing. Rezone 707 South Broad Street.
Yes, sir, thank you very much. We have this petition in front of us tonight, 16-00029 by Jamie Portman, the owner of 707 South Broad Street. She's requesting a rezone from R2 zoning to B1 zoning of a 0.58 acre tract. The proposed use for the property will be commercial for an antique store. The code department's recommendation is for approval, and the planning zoning recommendation is also to approve. And then just to read the boilerplate that I don't normally have to go through to start on that. Again, the property is presently zoned R1. Request zoning classification is B1. Requested zoning will permit a use that is suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent and nearby properties. The change of zoning will not adversely affect the existing and adjacent properties. Subject property does have restricted economic use as currently zoned. The change of zoning will not cause an excessive or burdensome use of existing streets, transportation facilities, utilities, or schools. And the future land use plan indicates this property should be medium density residential, which is basically what the R2 zoning is. And as I mentioned last week, that R2 zoning was just kind of a blanket to cover the mill district area with the zoning classification. But most of those residences are single family. If you have any questions, I'll get that answer.
Property owner here. Okay, we'll open the public hearing. You want to come to the mic and address the council and tell us a little bit about what you want to do.
Sure. My name is Jamie Portman. We just purchased the property at 707 South Front Street, and my plan is to turn it into a permanent location for my vintage boutique business. So I would hope that you would consider the rezone request. Just appreciate your consideration. Have any questions for me?
Questions?
And you said 8 parking spaces,
Yes,
I think.
approximately.
Are you going to pave that area or gravel it? or-
Gravel it for
Okay.
now, eventually I would like to have it paved.
Okay, you can come back to the mic if you need to have a rebuttal. I'll open the floor to anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this rezone. Seeing none, would anyone in the audience like to speak against the rezone? Seeing none. We can close. We'll close the public hearing at this point, and the matter will be before the council.
I'll offer a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Malcolm,
I second.
second by Mr. Richardson. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving into new business, item 1, application of beer and wine package sales, quick pick food market.
The application's in order, Mayor.
Thank you. The property owner here, or the business owner? Okay, you don't have to come forward with this. Okay, we need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Richardson,
Second.
second by Mr. Purvis. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a resolution of CDBG 2016. Bills and bonds.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is a City of Monroe fiscal year 2016 CDBG application resolution, whereas the Georgia Department of Community Affairs has established the Community Development Block Grant Program to assist cities and counties with improvements to public facilities, economic development, and housing in Georgia. And whereas there exists in the city a need to provide public infrastructure improvements to the City of Monroe's fiscal year 2016 CDBG target area, now therefore be resolved by the Mayor and City Council. The city supports the application for fiscal year 2016 CDBG funds, and the city will apply for these funds for public infrastructure improvements in the city's fiscal year 2016 CDBG target area. The city commits to the $10,000 required cash match for the project, $1,000 cash for required audits, and all additional cash and/or in-kind services needed to complete the project over the grant amount. Be it further resolved, the mayor is authorized and directed to act as official representative of the city to act in connection with the application. We are responsible for compliance with the applicable state and federal requirements of the program and provide for such additional information as may be required. Be it further resolved that the mayor is authorized to enter into an agreement for engineering and grant administration services relating to the application and subsequent grant if funded, and to execute the application and other required documents on behalf of the city, including the grant award package if funded. Be it further resolved, the city commits to own, operate, and maintain all proposed improvements. Be it further resolved, the city has adopted the citizen participation plan of the Georgia Department of Community Affairs to ensure public involvement in the CDBG process. Be it further resolved, the city hereby acknowledges that the proposed project is subject to the requirements of Section 3 of the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968 as amended, 12 U.S.C. 170 LU Section 3, and in accordance with the city's Section 3 compliance plan, will to the greatest extent feasible comply with all Section 3 requirements. Be it further resolved, the city hereby acknowledges that the proposed project is subject to the requirements of Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, the Fair Housing Act as amended, Section 104B2 of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended, and Section 105B3 of the National Affordable Housing Act of 1990, the NAHA. The city hereby commits to affirmatively further fair housing to the greatest extent feasible. Be it further resolved, the city hereby acknowledges that the proposed project is subject to the requirements of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 as amended, Title II of the American with Disabilities Act of 1990, and the Architectural Barriers Act of 1968. The city hereby commits to comply with all Section 504 requirements to the greatest extent feasible. Be it further resolved, the proposed public infrastructure improvements are in conformance with the City of Monroe's comprehensive plan and are not inconsistent with the city's service delivery strategy. Be it further resolved that a true and dedicated commitment has been made to the project for the successful completion of the above improvements for the citizens, especially the city's low to moderate income citizen. So resolved this 8th day of March 2016. That is the resolution, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Need a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the resolution.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wood,
Second.
second by Mr. Garrett. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a resolution of Georgia Cities Week, April 17th through the 23rd, 2016.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is a resolution of the City of Monroe recognizing Georgia Cities Week, April 17th to 23rd, 2016, and encouraging all citizens to support the celebration and the corresponding activities. Whereas city government is the closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents. And whereas city government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to and understanding of its many responsibilities. And whereas city government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along their understanding of public services and their benefits. And whereas Georgia Cities Week is a very important time to recognize the important role played by city government in our lives. And whereas Georgia Cities Week offers an important opportunity to spread the word to all the citizens of Georgia that they can shape and influence this branch of government which is closest to the people. And whereas the Georgia Municipal Association and its member cities have joined together to teach students and our other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information. And whereas Georgia Cities Week offers an important opportunity to convey to all the citizens of Georgia that they can shape and influence government through their civic involvement. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Monroe declares April 17th through 23rd, 2016 as Georgia Cities Week. Be it further resolved that the City of Monroe encourages all citizens, city government officials, and employees to do everything possible to ensure that this week is recognized and celebrated accordingly. So passed and adopted by the City of Monroe this 8th day of March 2016. That constitutes the resolution, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Need a motion to authorize the mayor to sign this resolution.
I make that motion.
Mr. Brown, second. Second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Richardson. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second reading of speed zone ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Monroe to adopt certain speed zone limits for the roads of the City of Monroe, to provide for certain school zone hour restrictions to speed limits, to authorize the use of speed detection devices within the city limits of the City of Monroe, to provide procedures for implementation and enforcement, and for other purposes. The Mayor and Council of the City of Monroe, Georgia hereby ordain as follows. Article 1, Section 1. Pursuant to OCGA 40-6-183, the City of Monroe hereby establishes the following speed zones on the roads and streets located within the city limits of the City of Monroe, all is more fully detailed and outlined in Exhibit A attached here to. Section 2, said speed zones and speed limits, including the restrictions relating to school zones, are hereby established based on an engineering and traffic investigation as prescribed by OCGA 40-6-183. Article 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Article 3, this ordinance shall take effect upon adoption and execution by the Mayor and Council. This constitutes the second reading, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Need a motion to adopt this ordinance.
Motion to adopt. And I'd also like to add in that motion that I'd like to have these published on our website.
Motion by Ms. Martin,
Second.
second by Mr. Purvis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is appointments to the tree board.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'll say two things about that. We have not had anyone submit their bio as an interest to replace Ms. Carol Bradley. However, Mr. Steele and Mr. Thompson are willing to serve on this board as two staff members. And so I'm recommending that they serve, that we appoint those two staff members and then continue to seek for an appropriate replacement for Ms. Bradley.
I have a motion to appoint Jeremiah Steele and Brian Thompson to the tree board.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Garrett. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the right-of-way abandonment.
Mr. Vice Mayor, just briefly, as we discussed last week, Mr. Rao was here to the abandonment of the right-of-way. You can see it there in your documents. Constitutes around 1.152 acres of abandonment, and then he is obviously going to have to abide by the development regulations. And is proposing to incorporate a little section of road to enter into the roundabout, which would meet the requirements. And I believe I saw Mr. Rao come in. If you have any questions, he can obviously answer those.
I move approval of this contingent upon the specifications as outlined in the documents.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of the Spring Street Enhancement Project.
And Mr. Vice Mayor, this was the presentation that Tim Serio gave from Keckenwood last week. As you're aware, we've discussed this project at I know several retreats now. It's a capital improvement project, and it would constitute the installation of approximately 1.38 miles of sidewalk. And I've spoke with Sam over the past couple of days, and realistically, just through surveying and engineering, you're looking, if approved, this project would not break ground around October or November. But are there just any general questions about the sidewalk? Sam, I'm sorry you couldn't be here this evening, but I am prepared to answer any questions.
Are we voting just to move forward with the
Engineering studies, design, yeah.
That's correct. Now, and I will bring up, Mr. Bradley had asked if, in Mr. Serio's letter, it states that if you did a complete streetscape project, it's around let's just call it $7 million. Now, that would include lighting, street trees, and then the brick pavers. He's pricing that as where you can add that in or take it out, or whatever. But the engineering cost would not change. You know, the design of the sidewalk remains the same regardless if you were to add lights or taller trees. The only thing is that if you decided not to do lights at this moment, you would save around $12,500. So, which then, if you did decide to add lights, you would have to go back and seek DOT approval. So, we would still install the conduit to run the electric lines for the street lights, but that would be installed in the right of way. So,
I talked to him last week about the pavers. Instead of going with pavers, he said that we would save about $250.
you'd save $250,000, but that would just be a construction cost, not engineering cost.
So we just basically voting on
The
engineering cost.
I'll offer a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Martin,
Second.
second by Mr. Little. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That ends our public agenda for this evening. We do need a motion to adjourn into executive session.
So moved.
Ms. Martin, Ms. Brooks. All in favor? About 5 minutes before the change.
What's going on, Brian? How you doing? Good, good. You got your summer outfit today. It was warm, wasn't it? I think it was 75.